And good morning. Welcome in once again to another installment of Your Life Matters with clinical social worker Dr. Beth Plachetka from Safe Harbor Counseling and Dr. Beth Speaks. And Dr. Beth joins us in studio on this Monday, President's Day. Doctor, how are we doing today?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Our topic for today, does it tie in with the day a little bit?
Well, it does, because we're going to talk about leadership. And I'm going to do a disclaimer. I'm not picking sides or anything. I just thought with all the things I do with education and workplace stuff, and then, of course, it's leadership is presidents are leaders.
Sure.
It'd be good to look at, like, what the qualities of good leader are. And so, I don't know if our listeners know this, but I look stuff up. I think, okay, like, what do people say? What does research say?
Right.
And the first three searches were kind of boring. They were the things that you would expect. They have to be people, or, a person, people, whatever,
right.
People, person, and they have to have good motivation, communication, tenacity, all those things that you would think.
Sure.
And I thought, okay, there was 60, those three searches, 60 characteristics that said pretty much the same thing. I thought, okay. So then I started digging around a little bit, and I ran across a website that said leadership lessons, and it had an article about Joan of Arc. And I thought, okay, let's just skim it, And this was unique because, as we know, she led French forces to free France from English rule as a woman a long time ago.
Long
and that
time,
was
yeah.
very, as a matter of fact, one of the reasons they burned her at the stake was because she was pretending to be a man. So, anyway, but one of the things it said was that she prepared by becoming virtuous, and she picked specifically piety, humility, and chastity. She paid close attention to that. And then, of course, she had those other things of all the other characteristics that went on. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And so then I thought, well, so how does that apply now? Because, this is like 600 years later, and maybe that doesn't apply. So I'm digging around on the internet, and I found a fifth search that was, the title was, Study Shows Virtues, Not Vices, Lead to More Effective Political Leadership. And it was by someone at the University of California at Berkeley. It was a 2016 study, and I was like, the article was written, it was then, I think the study was a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But I thought it was fascinating because they asked, the question was, research always has to have a question. What political approach is more effective? Is it the Machiavellian one, which is manipulation and emotional detachment, like, I don't care if you get hurt in this kind of attitude? Or the Aristotle one, which is about morality and ethics. I'm going to do what I said. We're going to do what's best, that kind of thing. So this group studied 151 C-SPAN videos, the first minute, because those were kind of the same for everybody, of 151 senators over a year. There was 141 men, 10 women, and they documented the virtuous traits. Here's what they found. Politicians who demonstrated virtuous traits, specifically those of courage, humanity, and justice, were able to get more co-sponsorship on legislation and were more influential in leadership roles. In other words, they could help people want to do what they were supposed to do.
Sure.
So virtues increase influence and vices don't. Now, they did say, this is a study of one, this is the pattern that we see. We always have to do that disclaimer. They also said no difference between the parties. Like, you can't say, oh, it's all this or all that.
Right.
It's the person. And then it appears that these traits are stable so that they're harder to fake. So some examples, like if somebody can maintain eye contact and be interested legitimately. And sometimes it's that little squeeze of the eyes or furrow of a brow. That can indicate that they're wise. Courage looks like a voice with no stammers, and that sounds like bravery and persistence.
Mm-hmm.
For sympathetic tones or facial expressions when you get some sad news or difficult news is humility. So they did all that and came up with that information.
Yeah.
And I thought, I love getting ready to be on the radio. I thought this is something I wouldn't have looked. The virtue of transcendence and its characteristics, though, of gratitude and hope are those that are witnessed in expressions of awe, and those are things that also move people a long, long way. So the message for any leader, whether it's our president, whether it's our boss, whether it's our principal, is it's important to know that both approaches exist, because some people think there's only one way. and they ignore the other. And that it's also important to practice habits that lead to virtue, because then you can influence your workers.
Yeah, some good advice there, and hopefully some of our listeners learned how to be a little more virtuous over that last 5 minutes. It's our weekly visit. You can always go online, too, if you want to hear back this show or past shows we've done. Go to safeharboril.com. You can get more resources, too, and do some of the research Dr. Beth does with some helpful articles and more. You can go on Facebook for Safe Harbor and Dr. Beth Plachetka as well, and call 630-466-8657 for Safe Harbor Counseling and Dr. Beth Speaks.